What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to be making this Punisher vest that I'm wearing, and I'm going to be giving away this other one, so stay tuned to the end of the video for the giveaway info. Now, I know this is like the third Punisher vest video I've done, right? But each one I get progressively better. When I made the first one, I had just some shots from the end of Daredevil Season 2. Whenever I made the second one, there was some promo shots that weren't the best, mostly of him wearing a jacket with the vest on, so I couldn't actually see what the back of it looked like. And between action figures and the second season, I've had more than enough views to see the back of the vest. I could get something a little more close to that. Now, as far as the patterns for this, are the same as they've always been for the front. The patterns for the rear part of the shell could actually be used on, I think, most armors. If you just want a plain flat black back for something that's going to go underneath a coat, I think this back is perfect for that, the main pattern piece. So that pattern, there will be a link for that in the description below. And that will be up for free on Facebook. So if you already own the patterns to the face and the front, you can just make an alternate back or whatever. So those patterns haven't changed. These are still the same. I did do a couple adjustments to the 4 and the 5, and that has been updated on the patterns online before this video even came out. I went back and updated those a few weeks ago. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the build. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I've cut out 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, and 2 number 3s. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to begin to go ahead and sand these out with a Dremel. Okay, so I've used my Dremel rotary tool to not only angle the edges, but also to sand down and just even out some of the flat parts here too, where I'm going to glue all this together. Because the fact is, I'm a person and not a laser cutter, and I cut this with my xacto knife, and sometimes it's a little more one way or the other, and I have to just kind of even it out, which is what I did. And you know, the opposite side of this 1/2 inch foam that I'm using has a texture on it, and if you want, you could also use that as the outside. I mean, you also don't have to put an angle on this. You could just round it off. I think the texture, in my opinion, is just a little bit too extreme, so I don't go with that, but I will end up doing some texture stuff with plastic up on this. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is take my heat gun here. This is just a cheap Drill Master heat gun. With thicker foam like this, I definitely recommend a heat gun. Hairdryer probably won't work. And the oven is a little bit excessive as far as trying to get this hot, so definitely heat gun for this. But what I'm going to do before I glue all these different pieces together is I'm going to put a little bit of preheat forming in this, and I'm going to do one side and come back and show you, but I just want to add a little bit of curvature to it because this is going to be wrapping up from my chest up over my shoulders. Okay, so side by side, here are the flat unheated pieces, and the heated pieces, like I say, just have a slight curvature, which will accommodate for my chest, going up over my shoulders and around into my armpits. And I'm going to heat these up to match, and then I'm going to start using contact cement to glue them all together. Alright, I've already applied the contact cement, and the stuff I use is DAP Weldwood contact cement. It also comes in a small bottle as well, and I use the bottle just because it has a brush to apply it. And I've let all this sit 15 minutes. I put it on the edges to be bonded, let it sit, and then press it together. Okay, so now that this is all glued together, I took my heat gun and did some final heat forming. And I just gradually heated areas and shaped them so that it matched up against my body. So that when I put this on me, this is the shape of my chest. This is coming up over towards my shoulders. My clavicle, for example, is right in there. Actual center of my chest is here. And my breastplate, or chest plate, center of my chest is right about there. And my rib cage is all going down through here. And I want to do this preheat forming, post gluing, but pre-adding the other pattern pieces, because I'm going to use a flat sheet of EVA foam as a base for this, which is what is going to be glued. All these other fours and fives and all the other pieces that are going to be glued onto here are going to be glued onto that base sheet. So I want this curved first to fit me well, because from here on out, just to cover my stomach, it's just going to be rounded. That's it. Okay, so the next thing I did, after having heat formed this to fit me, was I took a sheet of 12-inch by 18-inch EVA foam. Now this is just craft foam that I get at Hobby Lobby. If you have trouble finding it there or in your area in the US, you can always check out TNT Cosplay Supply online. Or if you have a Harbor Freight near you, you can get some 5/16-inch EVA foam mats. As far as outside the US, I'm sorry, I don't know. But I took this 12-inch by 18-inch sheet of EVA foam and first placed this on my chest, and then I had my fiance hold this in place while I slipped this up underneath it and curved it to my body. I then traced around the base of this onto the foam and cut that out. And I also trimmed it a little bit to have somewhat of an angle to it as well, which is kind of cool. That's, of course, up to you. Now, there is no pattern piece for this part of the build. And the reason for this is everybody has a different body size and shape. Now, you'll notice I made the 4 and 5 pieces noticeably longer than what I even needed. This is because this is meant to be customized to each person. Because your chest length, your chest width this way could be the same as mine, for example, or it could be larger, so you have to scale this up. In consequence, you also need to scale up all the other pattern pieces equally. However, whenever you go to put this on, you could actually have a shorter area on your body from where your chest ends to where right above your belt line. Right below your belly button, right above your belt line. I like to make these with the bottom of this coming significantly up above my belt line, because with this cosplay, I generally tend to wear an actual belt for my pants, but then a secondary belt over that, which is a police gun belt, and it is pretty wide. And the way it sits on my hips, if this is too long, it interferes with it. So keep things like that in mind whenever you're making your own vest, that it's meant to be customizable in length. And this, of course, you're going to have to enlarge or shrink depending upon the size of your chest, but the actual length you need to self-adjust so that you can have something that fits you just the way you want. Otherwise, it's going to be too long, too short, too wide, etc. This is the easiest way I could come up with as far as problem solving to eliminate that. And next what I'm going to do is take some contact cement and apply it to this edge, and I'm going to glue this piece up flush with the bottom of this. Okay, once I got all this attached, I used some hot glue and a hot glue gun and sealed up the back of it here, just in the areas where I felt like I was going to get the most torque and the most stress. I chose hot glue because it is flexible, so as this curves and conforms a little bit to my body whenever I tighten everything down, it'll still be able to flex and isn't super uncomfortable, provided that you put the hot glue on evenly. It is pretty smooth. And next thing I did was took a ruler, and using this as a center straight edge, I used it to draw a line down to a point. I simply measured from side to side and marked the center. And just use a ruler and the tip of a screwdriver to give myself a basic straight edge. Because next I have my 2 number 5 pieces and my 2 number 4 pieces that are also 5mm EVA foam. I do apologize for using all black on camera, but just kind of what I ended up with. And I'm going to start gluing these in, following the center line, and the 4s beside that. And just like with the others, I'm going to use contact cement Okay, so I have my number 4 and number 5 pieces glued on, of course using my center marker where to line up the two number 5s so I can get them straight, and then of course the number 4s just fall into place. And just to show you on camera here how it's going to look on my body. When I'm wearing it, I'm still going to have space. My waist is right here. I will still have space to put a gun belt. And I will also be able to bend over. If I put this too low down, it's going to be very constrictive, and I'm not going to be able to move much or at all, which is why generally actual plate carriers or armored vests stop about right here. And also because if you get shot below this area, you're pretty highly likely to still survive and live, provided your blood loss isn't too great, which is why they generally protect the chest and the stomach area. Okay, so I have used an xacto knife to put some cuts in here based on reference photos. I basically just started from the top here, went down about 1/4 inch, and then pulled from there to there. And here went straight down, made cuts like that. And one straight across here, following up into it. From this corner on each of the 4s, I went from here down, and then I went from about 1/4 inch in, and then just followed that down. And now I'm going to use my heat gun to go over all these where I made the cuts and help to open them up. Okay, and now that that is done, these have opened up a little bit wider. And next I have this piece here, which I call the D piece. It looks like a D, except one side is longer than the other. The long side is going to go on top, and you're going to put 2 on each side. And at least in theory, when you line this up with the edge and you glue it flat here first, you're going to then want to glue it so it folds over like that. I'll go ahead and glue those 2 on and come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I went ahead and glued on both these pieces, and you'll notice these googly eyes, which are going to be acting as rivets. Of course, as you can see them now, they are just googly eyes. But once I paint them, they're going to look like snaps. I have used tacks in other videos, but I feel like this is safer and inexpensive, and I have it. So next thing I'm doing is taking some of this stuff here, which is polypro strapping. You can also get any sort of nylon or other synthetic strapping, and as long as it's synthetic, it glues on excellently with super glue, which is also what I use to glue on my 2mm thick D pieces here, as well as the eyes. And synthetic things like the polypro or the nylon glue pretty quickly and simply just using super glue. And I drizzled some into the gap here. As you can see, this one is not fully glued down. This one is. And then I just take my super glue and remove the cap here. And then I just apply some where I want to glue it down. And then just simply press it into place. And this polypro strapping, like I say, is 1 inch. And I also picked up these little eyelets here to put through at Hobby Lobby, which is where I got the strapping. But I've also picked up the straps at Walmart as well. Now, I don't know if Walmart, or can't remember offhand if they sell this, but if you do not have those stores other than near you, can always look online for 1 inch straps and eyelets. And you can also scavenge a lot of these things like this or like this off of old discarded book bags. And another thing I picked up too is some 1 inch D-rings, which we won't get to till later, but those are pretty cool. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and glue this down as well, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Alright, next I am taking some 2 inch wide polypro strapping here, and I have some Nerf darts. Actually, these are Busby long distance darts, but what I'm doing is chopping them just about in half, and taking the bottom pieces and gluing them in between with super glue so that I get this rib-like effect. And I'm doing 5 on each side because that's what I see from the reference photos. Now that I have the 2-inch on, I went back to another piece of 1-inch and glued it on. This time I used the other ones though, that way you guys could just see for yourselves how that looks. You can get an idea if you want to use this one, maybe cut your own out of foam, or just skip it all together. Next, I have the number 6 pieces, which are essentially just rectangles, and I glued them all on, 4 of them, one for each piece here, for the 2 4s and the 2 5s. And you see from the back, I did overlap them a little bit on the bottom, and I did slightly slant these on the end with scissors. Not necessary, I just did that. But I overlapped them a little bit so I can go back through and use some hot glue to just kind of reinforce and fill this in, since this is a piece that is kind of hanging off and is likely to get snagged on things, although I'm not going to do that right now. Because next, I'm going to go ahead and take some more of my 2-inch here. I'm going to put a section here from about 3 inches. I'm going to cut off and glue on each side. Alright, put another piece of the 2-inch polypro here, and about 1.5 inches out, I glued on my number 7 pieces, which overlap a little, and I used some more googly eyes for rivets. But now, next I am heating up my hot glue gun so I can go through and do a bunch of the reinforcing I was talking about on these pieces and also around on here. Alright, so I used my hot glue gun to just seal off all the various points where I glued everything here, like around all these spots. And now that I was officially done with heat forming and shaping the top of it to fit me, I also followed all the edges there where I glued everything together with contact cement. Then I put these U pieces on, which are also 2mm, just like the 2mm EVA foam that I used for the D pieces. And these I actually cut freehand. However, I did put one in the actual patterns. But yeah, those are actually done freehand. Just because it's so hard for me to trace that out and try to cut it. It's easier for me to just, cut it. Next, we're going to move on to some straps and D-rings and other fun stuff. Alright, so next I took my strap pieces and heated them and curved them, and then applied some contact cement and glued it slightly offset forward a little bit, because on the back side of it I took and used more hot glue to reinforce it. So in the front here I took and put a bead of super glue along the edge there where I contact cemented it together to help give it a little bit of added stability. And now I'm going to take some more of my 1-inch polypro strapping, and I'm going to glue this down with super glue across the top of this, both for effect and for added stability. I'm going to add D-rings in the front as well. Okay, I glued on my straps. I put super glue to about 3/4 of an inch and glued that in place, put my D-ring under, and then glued it so it's about 1 inch on either side here. And follow this all the way around to the back, and of course, like I said, there will be Velcro to attach to the rear there. So here I have one side or one half of the new back piece that I came up with, and if you download and print this out, it's going to be in several pieces. You're going to have to put it all together to get the full piece. And what I'm going to cut this out of is actually not 5mm. It's going to be 3/8 inch thick EVA foam mats. They have this texture on the back, and it comes in a big roll. I picked this up at Harbor Freight, and I want to say it is around $10 for 6-foot by 2-foot sheet. However, I'm certain you can find something comparable online or at a store near you if you don't have that store available to you. And I'm going to trace out each side, cut it out, and they're going to be glued down the center seam here. Alright, I have glued the two halves together, and when you look at them sideways here, you can see going from the shoulders down to the small of the back, it, just from the shape of it, kind of already puts in the shape of a person's back. But now, however, I'm going to heat and form this so that these curve up as if they would be going up over to meet with the straps from your shoulders. and of course also to heat the sides of it here and curve those in, and also just to kind of shape and even out the back a little bit so it fits mine a little more custom. Alright, so I did my heat forming and curved the sides in, and also heated the inside and outside through the center and shaped that a little bit better to get it a little bit more matching to my actual back. Then I took the rear shoulder plate pattern pieces and already glued one on. Didn't glue on both of them. I wanted to show you here that I do heat form these prior to putting them on. Okay? And whenever I get done between the two of them, I'm going to have about exactly 1 inch of space between the two at its current scale whenever I attach them. Alright, now that I have the shoulder plates on, I need to start thinking about my Velcro. And I've already cut it to shape, and you'll notice that I've traced around the shape of it. And I am now going to use my Dremel to sand that out so that I have a nice smooth surface to glue to, since this has that texture on it. I don't want that. It'll make it much harder for the adhesive to stick. Alright, so I have glued on my Velcro, and the Velcro that I use is industrial strength Velcro, and I just want to stop and talk about this real quick because the industrial strength Velcro that I usually find, like this here, you'll notice has a side here you peel off and there is an adhesive underneath. However, the Velcro itself generally is much stronger than the adhesive. Which translates to, if I were to just peel that off and stick the Velcro to here, it will come off with just a couple uses. So what I end up having to do is apply contact cement over the adhesive side of the Velcro and also to the foam, just like normal. I let it sit for about 20 minutes, just to make sure it's fully cured. And then I push it together. But I don't stop there. I end up taking super glue and just going around the edge of the actual piece of Velcro itself on both of them. But then on this underside that you're not going to see because it's going to be concealed, this I even took and I put a bead of hot glue around it to help reinforce and hold it in. That is like literally all 3 types of glue I'm using in this video I just put on this one application, because this industrial strength Velcro works so well, but almost too well whenever you juxtapose it against the strength of the adhesive that it comes with. Okay, now that my Velcros are all together here, I've already pretty much tried it on and sized it right about where I want it, because the next thing I had to do was cut off the excess here whenever this is on my body. And I scaled this out a little bit, and it turns out it was just enough, because I literally only had to trim a sliver off either side for it to match up pretty flush. So now that that's done, I'm going to take my 2-inch polypro strapping, and I'm going to glue it around the bottom so it kind of matches up where this one would be underneath this pouch thing here. Alright, so I put various detail cuts down the back plates here and some on the actual back itself, going from up here down to the base, which I then glued my 2-inch strip over. And then I took some scrap pieces of leather. You could use fabric or anything if you want to do this method, but I took some scrap pieces of leather, and using contact cement, I contact cemented into the inside here, which of course I did sand smooth first, just like I did for this. And then on this extended flap here, I put a piece of the industrial strength Velcro, which I am next going to take and put some of the soft stuff on the inside of this so I can join the two together and try it on and make sure that it all still fits before I go any further. Okay, I got the other two straps glued on here, and they wrap around the back and pretty much match up with right where the other ones sit. I do need to go to the store and pick up at least 6 more 1-inch D-rings, unfortunately, before I go too much further. But I also cut a couple of 2-inch long strips of the synthetic 1-inch strips here and put them overlapping so it looks as if they're running underneath in a way which you would tighten it. And next I'm going to cut out 2 more of the number 7 pieces, because there's going to be 2 that are going to go right here on either side, matching up with the ones on the front. Okay, I got my other number 7s glued here. You can see the seam here between the back and the front. And on the number 7 on the front, the eyelets are up here, and on the back I put them here. Also added another strap. As you can see, this is an orange color. I didn't have any more black. Doesn't matter, because this is all about to be one color here in a minute. But areas like the googly eyes, for example, are plastic, and they don't take paint or plastic or anything very well. It usually peels off or flakes off, unless you use something that's made specifically for it. I happen to have this Duplicolor vinyl and fabric specialty coating, and it works great on everything from different types of foam to mold injected plastics and other things that don't generally absorb paint very well. So I'm going to give this an entire primer coat of this stuff. It is not like normal spray paint or Plastidip, because it is literally more or less a dye as opposed to a paint. It soaks in as opposed to lays on top. So this is just simply going to turn everything black and give a nice base coat for things like the eyelets and the darts that are in here, because spray paint a lot of times will literally shrink and melt those darts in that type of foam. And it will also turn the strapping and stuff that is not the same color a nice uniform black along with everything else. Okay, so on to the painting. Now you can see I've already started, and I do use an airbrush. And I have 2 number 10 pieces and 2 number 11s. Those are basically stencils for me to airbrush around. Or you could also hand paint around it. You don't have to use an airbrush. But what I do is I look at a reference photo, and I start basically sketching out what I want it to look like, totally freehand around this. I do use a piece of scrap cardstock. And what I do with that is I take it in my hand and I hold it so that it is curved, and then I put it up here, and that's how I get those lines and those edges for the shape of the skull. I don't actually have a stencil for that and don't like it. I like each one to be original and unique, sticking, as close as I can humanly replicate to, what they've done artistically with it. In these areas out here, you can see I've already drawn all the drips on freehand with the airbrush. And most of these will be filled in by actually just using the airbrush paint that I have put in a bottle here. And I thinned it out with some water, so it is a bit runny. But it's supposed to be, because I want it to come out of the airbrush smooth and clean, so I do thin out the paints a bit. Also, it makes the paints last longer and cost me less money. And the paints that I usually use is Createx Opaque White is what I'm using for this, and I usually use Createx paints for almost everything. They are acrylic. This one I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It was $5 though for this little bottle. But like I say, if you thin it out, it will last as much as 5-6 cans of spray paint. You just don't need that much. So once I have my design traced out, then I start to go along and fill it in. that I have my basic design painted on, I'm now using the bottle, which I have my airbrush paint in, and just squeezing the slightest amount. I'm getting to basically do a controlled run, if that makes sense, where it's like a drip that I'm guiding the path of. You'll notice this stands out a lot more than the other white. However, once this dries, I will go back through with the airbrush and even it all out. Now, time to blend these in so the drips aren't sticking out. Okay, so now that the paint job is all finished and everything's to my satisfaction, I'm going to begin to destroy it. And to do that, I'm going to start off with a wood burner. When I did this to the other vest, I actually used a heated screwdriver, but that's not really the safest thing. Not that this is much better, but I am going to use this to begin to put holes in it so that I can make it look like it has been shot and there are rounds stuck in it. So I'm going to look at reference photos, put my holes in the front and the back of it, and come back and show you how I'm going to make the rounds themselves. Now that I have the holes in, I am using the wood burner to go around them and make impact marks like that. Okay, I also put some holes in the back. However, the ones in the back are smaller. One of them look like they came from a smaller caliber ammo, and in the front, something bigger, like say 45 ACP. And to make actual little rounds, what I've done is I've taken a hot glue stick and cut it up into pieces. And I'm now going to shove those in there, and that'll hopefully also help to deform the foam a little bit more, make it look like there's actually been an impact. And I'm going to glue those into place using super glue. Okay, so now that I have all these large hot glue stick pieces in the front and the smaller in the back, I am going to go ahead and use some Model Masters metallic model paint to paint these up. on to some blood splatter. For that, I have some Createx transparent bright red that I mixed with basically 2 parts of that to 1 part of the deep red. And these are transparent, and I also thinned them out with some water since they are acrylic. And with these, I can kind of just be very careful, but I can just let some drip out and then let gravity and a little help of air power go ahead and push it down. And yeah, just by blowing on it, I can get it stretched out. And you can already see that it's not, obviously it's called transparent, it's not opaque, which will allow, you know, the darker areas, lighter areas to show through a little differently underneath it and make it look a little bit more realistic. And it'll also allow the gold to show through and so on and so forth. And aside from just randomly dripping it on, I'm also going to be splattering some on with a paintbrush as well, and then just doing some dabbing and dragging as well to maybe move some of these different ways and do some different things as I put the blood splatter on. Not with the actual brush itself, but with the tip of the handle to do that type of stuff. Alright, here is how it looks. I just finished doing all the blood splatter and such on it, and dripping and guiding and things like that. And it still has to dry, and as you can see, some of these runs here aren't quite done with going in their course yet, but only thing left now is to let this dry and try it on. That pretty much wraps it up for this video. So the footage you just saw of me sitting here right now, I did not have my fiance here to help me like adjust the shoulder straps and tighten everything down. So just for me putting it on myself without any assistance, I did pretty good. But since it does fit me so uniformly, I do need a little bit of assistance to get it on properly. But I am totally happy with it. And as always, thank you guys for checking out this video. And if you stuck around this long, then I'm going to tell you how to enter to win this other Punisher vest I have sitting right here. So I would like you to comment below with your thoughts or opinions on the Punisher. Do you enjoy the character? And what is your favorite version of the character? Whether it be in movies or television or even, you know, the animated Spider-Man cartoon from the early 2000s, I think, where he made an appearance. Yeah, let me know what you think about all that. I would love to hear it in the comments below. And that will enter you in the drawing. Now, when will the drawing happen? The drawing will happen whenever I hit 3,000 subscribers, which I am very close to doing. That should just be a couple weeks. So keep your eyes peeled, like and share the video, and help me to get to 3,000 subscribers so I can go ahead and do the drawing for this and give it away. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you are not a subscriber, please feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And as always, have a great day, and thanks for watching.